Hello and welcome to episode whatever, our Rebel City podcast. It's been a while. We're back. We're going to have a catch up here, talk about some of what we're maybe going to play with in the sort of coming weeks and months, and then, you know, hopefully get back to it on a more regular basis because it's been a while, hasn't it, mate?
This is episode 130.
130? Fucking hell, man.
Back at a table.
Back at a table, back on camera. Hello, YouTube, if you're there, or 4 years.
It's funny how you get like hundreds on Spotify, and then YouTube's just such a fucking hard crack. It's crazy.
I think that's kind of like, we touched on it a lot on Twitter, as you know, in recent weeks, we're sort of toying with the format. Obviously, last year, we spoke about it in a previous episode, where the last year we've not been as regular as we were previously. The algorithm on pretty much every platform that we operate on has absolutely tanked us for that, which was lovely. And it's kind of like left me thinking, right, well, you know, we were talking at Sharon's exhibit about how we get back to, you know, a more weekly format, and doing what we were currently doing with, you know, guests predominantly every week is more and more difficult every week. Like, I think when we first started it, you know what I mean, it was you come in, and somebody showed up, we recorded, and then we went again the next week. Whereas I think in the last year, you know, circumstances for everybody have changed, and it has become increasingly difficult to tie folk down on a regular basis on topics that we actually want to get into. So I think that's something that's been kind of like on my mind, and how we kind of like, you know, work against that and keep it going. I think as well, when I looked at the numbers over the course of the last year, like the episodes where you and I have done sort of catch-ups have predominantly been, you know, the more well-received episodes in that regard. So I think like going forward for me, I think like the basic format is hopefully going to be a regular catch-up that can keep us on side with the algorithms, keep us on side with, you know, just the commitments that we want to make to it as well. And then as and when, you know, a subject or a topic, or, you know, somebody becomes available to us to actually, you know, do a real sort of proper episode with a guest, you know, we take those opportunities as and when they come in. Maybe spend a wee bit less time just talking to everybody all the time. You know what I mean? Like, the people I want to talk to going forward are the folk that are actually like listening to us and like watching us on YouTube, which I don't think we've done enough of either. As much as we've not kept on side with the algorithm, we've probably not played the game as much either by saying to folk, look, we're having conversations about very specific topics. We're not getting any sort of call to action to people to say, well, come on, get involved in YouTube comments and let us know what you think about this, or, you know, hit us up on Twitter with ideas or any type of thing. So I think that's probably another thing that we need to be a wee bit more about going forward. Obviously, we've got some topics today that we definitely want to be hearing what, you know, folk have got to say on it.
100%. It's a weird one as well, because I think we just fell in, like, we didn't really like plan it. We just kind of fell into it, didn't we? But I quite like the idea of people coming in and contributing to what we're already doing, rather than the format completely changing for a guest. Which is, I mean, you can talk to a guest about, you could maybe spend like 15 minutes being like, what you up to, right? Promote your thing, but then here's what we're here to talk. Here's the subjects that we're here to talk about. Which your opinions on that? You know what I mean?
Definitely. I think like the regular contributors was something that we touched on Twitter when we announced it. I don't know what format that's going to take. We do have one sort of, you know, since the transfer window's open, we have got one new signing to announce to the world here, and it's our new tech guy, Dave. Dave, how you doing, mate?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I know bad, mate. We've known Dave since the beginning of time. He's helping out with Paul in the studio, and seems like a good idea to bring, you know, a new voice in when we're talking about bringing sort of folk into the fold and looking for sort of new contributors. So looking forward to see, you know, what Dave can bring going forward. But it's good to have you, mate.
I appreciate it, and I'm obviously looking forward to getting involved, helping out with some of the technical side. I'm sure I'll maybe get on camera at some point, but just now I'm happy helping out, giving some ideas, some feedback, and obviously looking at what you guys want to do going forward.
Yeah, man, so. Definitely get the strongest head of hair in the fucking room.
I got my summer mop cut during the week, and it was like one of the best bits of self-care I've ever done in my entire life. I sat down in the chair on Tuesday. The guy was a fucking COVID nutter, so he was like, which was fun. He's like, you know, it was like, get the middle classes back in line, and I was like, you know, that way where you're going, oh, maybe I, you know what I mean? Try to like signal that I'm like, right, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with this. Can we move on? And he did not move on. So that was fun. But I get rid of mines and it's starting to go quite thin up top, which is a worry. So it is like,
all, mate.
I'll need to maybe start with the hats like you.
Mate. It's not happening to us all.
No, it's certainly not happening to you. There it is. But in terms of like regular contributors, you know, we'll be keeping an eye out for folk that can come in and maybe bring some of their own ideas or whatever to down the line.
Man.
Not sure how it's
podcasters coming through the fucking
well
place.
This is it.
Do you know what I mean?
We have access to a pool of people who have opinions and like a bit of chat, so I think it might be time to start taking advantage of that to a wee bit merry a degree than we have.
I quite like the idea of no having the same voices. Like when we were sitting down with, was it Mark Kerr? Is that councillor?
Matt Kerr, yeah.
Matt Kerr. It was really nice. Like, it's really nice for people to agree with you on like your viewpoint.
Yeah.
But at some point, you know, I don't know, man, there was like absolutely no disagreement. And that's like I said, when you're sitting in the room with people and you're talking and you're pure Tory bashing, I love it. But I think for the purposes of like content, I would quite like some alternative viewpoints and stuff, because it can get a bit, you know, like an echo chamber of people that follow you, that agree with you, people that come into the studio that agree with you, and we I would quite like, no necessarily like people coming in fucking total opposite end. You know what I mean? Like fucking,
I was not looking for a screaming match.
Exactly, but maybe somebody that's got in some subjects that we're emotionally invested in, they maybe be like, well, here's
have you thought about have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Definitely. I mean, for me, you know, no secret that over the last couple of years I've got massively into, you know, the sort of YouTube and sort of, you know, Twitch content. I'd love to see us get to a place that, you know, if we can start to build a wee bit more engagement, you know, start to hear from the audience about what they want to hear us talk about on a week-to-week basis, you know, how they'd like to see us approach if they get ideas for, you know, the one-off podcasts. I'd like to maybe see if there's like some sort of low-key kind of documentary stuff we can do in places, you know what I mean, like up the production value a wee bit maybe in places if and when there's time and resources to do that, you know what I mean, like, but ideally like the weekly stuff I'd like to out there live. I've said to you before, I want to inject a bit of chaos into it and have the people that are out there listening to us, you know, come and chill out with us on a Sunday afternoon like we're doing here, you know what I mean, we're sitting out having a bit of chat, we're watching the football, etc. And like, I would like to be able to say to folk, well, what do you think? And have them be like, well, here's what I think, you know what I mean, in the moment. So, you know, that's something that I'd definitely like us to build to, but I think the new, we need to get regular and we need to start to find ways to like get folk to actually engage with us again, you know what I mean, like, because, you know, without it, the rest it doesn't really have an awful lot of point. You know what I mean? Like,
so what are we talking about anyway? What's the?
I mean, it's been a couple of weeks. I know we touched in a recent episode on the guy Tate.
Cobra.
Aye. It all got a bit silly. As much as the guy is obviously a total and utter scumbag. But aye. I've never seen the internet or Twitter quite explode the way it did when this guy got lifted in Bulgaria. And obviously there was a whole chat about the pizza box stuff and all that carry on, as if this guy isn't on the radar of probably every like policing agency in the face of the planet. You know what I mean? He's influencing, you know, things like your TikTok that we've discussed before. Like, you know, authorities everywhere will have been very much aware of the guy. I don't think, you know, the pizza box thing was legit, but at the same time, it was quite funny to see almost everybody on the planet be like pure, oh, you know, it get done. Especially after the mugging he took off of the lassie Thunberg. Like, the video was just cringe, and I think it shows you how fragile the ego of somebody like him is, that he's went out there and for whatever reason decided to pick an online beef with, you know, a young girl because whatever, she doesn't want the world to end, you know what I mean, like, and has ended up getting made to look like a bit of a fanny, to then like double down on it. Like, the video was like almost Partridge-esque for me, you know what I mean, like the fucking smoking jacket and the cigars and, you know, just this whole like projection of like, you know, I'm this cool, like awesome, you know, whatever the fuck he's aiming for. And it was just like, you look like the saddest old man that I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, that's without even getting into the crimes that he's alleged to have committed. You know, we've all seen the evidence now of his website where he's essentially boasting about how he traffics women and, you know, gives the sort of headlines of the blueprint about how, you know, you can date as well. And that's the message that he's selling. So, you know, the longer he sends in a jail cell, the now for me is probably the better, you know what I mean?
The whole sort of like, I mean, the whole thing leaves me feeling really uncomfortable. Like, just the misogyny is, I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that boys and men are struggling in this world. And a lot of men, I mean, even guys our age, but particularly, like, it seems a generation younger, they don't have many sort of good male role models to look up to. So unfortunately, they fell into it. Started with people like Rogan back in 2015, Jordan Peterson sort of 2016, and it's descended into this fucking madness. I mean, I don't see. First of all, I don't know if 100% believe the character that he's portraying. I think the guy's just trying to make a bit of money.
I don't think there's anything about him that's genuine in that respect. You know what I mean? Like, as you say, he's very much playing a character, like, but it doesn't buy him a pass for any of the things that he's saying or doing.
He's
you know what I mean?
Controversy as a marketing tool, and he's using
everybody's doing that now.
Yeah, he's using a divisive subject matter to basically make money off of people that are desperate.
Yep.
And I watched a podcast where they basically bought the subscription to the Hustlers University, and they were just like, this is like, you get all this information on YouTube. It was like, you know, you can get a driving license. It was just all this like stuff like, try and go and do anything to make money. Start there, start making money, and then you can build it up from there. So,
right.
I mean, it seems like he's the face.
Sounds very much like the idea is to crowdsource an idea. You know what I mean? Like, step one, go and make money. Like, pure, okay, cheers, guy. As if that wasn't the initial problem that these boys have in the first place. You know what I mean?
But then, like you're saying, that I think that the marketing, and I don't know if it's just basically like a sort of skepticism, not to be like, I fucking hate this cunt. Because it's like, if it's went too far, like if his marketing strategy was to like, I'm just going to go out there and be divisive as a way to sell these courses to make money for myself, it's went far too far. And some of the ideas that he's fucking putting out there, some of the stuff that you're hearing, and again, it's coming from the internet, so you need to be very balanced with it. But you're hearing stories about kids calling like female teachers basically like some of the shit that he's peddling.
Definitely.
So like young guys are really influential. Young people are really influential, and I think that the ideas that he's putting out there are fucking crazy. Now, as far as like the actual level, his conviction, like to what I think he's going to be a victim of his own sort of like mouth, because there's an investigative journalist that works for Panorama who's basically saying it's all a lie. Like his mansion,
I've seen this.
So his mansion in Romania turns out to be a renovated meat factory, and his empire's like 3 women in a semi-detached. And all
saying that they expect that a lot of the glitz and flash that he's got is off the back of finance and stuff like that.
They're saying that it's another company that owns all his cars, and he does own a portion of that company, but ultimately it's a business, it's not him. So he owns nothing, and that could be really smart in his part, where he's putting his assets into like a business so that when the day inevitably come for him, they can't touch the assets or whatever. But I don't know.
It sounds like at least some of the charges are related to organised crime, so I mean,
right,
in Romania anyway, so you know that is very much in line with what you're describing as a possibility there in terms of like the financial side of it.
There's guys you're starting to see pop up now in the UK that are sort of like trying to copy and paste the Andrew Tate, and there's a guy in Glasgow that's doing it, and basically like through the grapevine what I've heard is that him and a bunch of people are pulling wealth to give this guy
the appearance
that he lives this lifestyle. Like he was at the last UFC in Vegas. He cuts about in like a fucking 250 grand supercar. He stays in a big fucking massive flat up at Kelvin Grove Park.
Right.
But the chat that I've heard is that they're pulling wealth.
So it's just basically like performance art again.
4 or 5 of them are worth maybe $500,000, and they're claiming that this guy's worth £4 million and that he's made it off of this course. And now I'll teach you how to make this money. And then they get into it, and it's like, get a driving license. It's all just the same shit, man. It's like...
It's something that like is and I know like part of the reason why there was as much of a gap in episodes as there was is like I've had like proper doubts about carrying on and what that can look like, and part of that is looking around at the the sort of ecosystem and seeing these conversations happening on a fairly regular basis. If I can just get X amount of people to sub to my channel for X amount of pounds, I'll make X, and you're like, why? I do this because like I enjoy doing it. Like it's something that I didn't anticipate doing when you asked us. Thought why not give it a try? And over the years, it's become something that I've really enjoyed. But like for me, the money and certainly like the fame side of things has no ever really been a motivation, and I think that is reflected in like the guests we've spoke to and stuff. But like looking about the new. It's funny that I mentioned like Alan Partridge there. Have you seen the new like Steve Coogan stand up that's doing the rounds?
No.
And it's basically like Alan Partridge selling like a life skills course. So as like
right,
and it's this is the thing is like people are now, it's like we've had the influencer stage. I think we're heading towards a stage where people are trying to almost make themselves their own wee guru. You know what I mean? Like where.
Oh, well, there.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, and it's like, I think that's terrifying to me because, it's going to look back on it and see Andrew Tate as like, the first guy out the tap. You know what I mean? Like, or, one of the early ones out the tap. Because
on that
you're going to get copycats.
Aye, on that e-commerce side of it, you're right. But mate, Tony Robbins, man, he's the OG. This cunt's managed to sell it to American presidents.
Aye.
And there's nothing special about what the guy, you know what I mean? And like, well, it's at the point now where you've got
just
like
repackaging common sense,
mate. We're at the point now where, like, now I love the guy's content. Now you're talking about the guru, like the guru of 2021 was Andrew Huberman, right? The Huberman Lab.
Okay.
Now it's weird, right? Because
I don't know this.
So he's like the head of neuroscience at Stanford.
Right.
He's an ADHD expert.
Okay.
He's on the cutting edge of pretty much all of the neuroscience, like explaining how the brain works and all that.
Well,
right?
yeah.
So. But it's weird because he's making content being like, here's how to cope with your ADHD, but it's like a 3 hour long podcast. And you're like, people with ADHD can't. Right? That's kind of goes against, but his clips on like.
That is counterintuitive.
His reels and his TikToks and all that go viral.
Of course, aye.
But we're now at the point now, right, where you're talking about the guru. I don't know how. It's kind of like, what was that money saving expert guy that saw on the TV?
Martin, is it Lewisham or something like that?
So he's now.
Martin Lewis.
Martin Lewis, right? He's now at the point now where he's like, guys, I don't know what to tell you. There's no more cost cutting, right? Like, who was
the energy
right,
company's
so
charging you £1,000 a month? Like, there's no amount of like minor cost cutting is going to cover it.
So he's like 5 things that you need to strive to do within every 24 hours. So it's like you need to do this in your day, and he's like, within 5 minutes of getting up, stare into sunlight. Because it has this dopamine effect on the brain and it wakes you up. And you're like, I stay in Glasgow, mate.
I never seen sunlight until 1:30 this afternoon.
It's not even just that. He's like, learn how to elevate cortisol in the morning and reduce cortisol. And it's like...
So how do you do that?
But he'll say stuff like, sleep, sunlight, more sunlight, morning sunlight, nutrition, water.
It's out in the back garden, like, what is that, like the sun holing thing?
Sun in your arsehole.
Sun in your arsehole.
But we're now at the point now where it's like when I hear all of these guys like Wim Hof and they're like, cold water and blah, 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 you're like, how much actual real life benefit do people get for this thing that you're telling them's going to save their fucking world? And I think we're in the sort of single percents now, like you can boost your dopamine by like 1% if you do this thing. It's like, but do you know how much fucking work it takes to do that one thing that you're telling me today for these small returns? So you're right, we're getting to this point now where it's like guru status where, I seen an influencer on pure wee bath and cracking the ice and jumping in and doing the breathing, and then pure people call this toxic masculinity, and you're like, who calls that toxic masculinity? Nobody calls that
you're
toxic.
Taking a bath, dude, like fuck up.
You're sitting in some cold water for 5 minutes, and I get that there's a fucking real benefit behind it, but we're now at this sort of self-improvement stage where I don't know how much more, like all the information's there. It's all there. Google it. Go to YouTube. Watch a series. That guy, here's this guy. He's the expert at working out. Watch his workout videos. Here's the expert in the side hustle. Watch his. But now what we're actually seeing is people are like collating all this open, free knowledge that's in YouTube, which is the biggest university that's ever existed. stockpiling it and then creating these controversial topics on the internet to drag you in and then sell you stuff that you can get for free if you know where to find it. It's just a weird thing to
it's
see.
something that has been like a massive turn off for me, because like when we get into this, you were daft on podcasts, and to this day, like I wouldn't necessarily say I don't like podcasts, but like I need like a very specific topic to be like, all right, cool, you know, I'll watch that. I don't have like that thing where, oh, you know, Rogan has got his new podcast out and I'm straight on it, you know what I mean? Like, I've got, you know, plenty that I follow, but if I see that they're into something that I'm like, right, cool, then I go and check it out, sort of thing. So I'm still quite a casual in that respect, you know what I mean? Like, but that whole thing is just not appealing to me. Like, you know, the notion that you're like, oh, I'll start a podcast, and then like a year down the line, you've accidentally started a fucking cult, you know what I mean? Like, what are you meant to do with that? You know what I mean? Like,
that's it. It's like a cult. On the cult status, cult of personality, and a related topic, have you seen the re-education of Jordan Peterson?
Is this like a documentary or something?
No, it's like...
So I've seen that he get recalled in the Canadian Education Board because they were like, what you are discussing out there in the world does not fall within the criteria of your...
It's his certification as a psychotherapist. So they're saying it's like so we've got the BACPP, the British Association for Chartered Counsellors and Psychotherapists, right?
So is he a psychotherapist? I thought he was like some sort of economist or something.
No, he's a psychologist.
Right,
he's an evolutionary psychologist and and he's got certification to do therapy. I don't think he actually sees anybody.
Can't
he's
imagine
like a university lecturer when they get sacked for refusing to use.
You'd imagine that there'd be a certain demographic that would probably be quite up for having him as their, you know, therapist.
100%, mate, 100%. But what happened was, so there's this whole thing where he get called in for re-education, and obviously he's like pure, this is communism.
Aye.
And you're like, when you look at what happened, it was that they took away his license to practice person-to-person therapy with people.
Okay.
Because as part of their code of ethics, and the same code of ethics that exists in the UK.
So you need to practice on at least regular basis, didn't you?
But he might hit the minimum check marks, I don't know.
Right.
But basically what they were saying is because he's out there, basically I think it was something to do with transgender, like his opinions on that.
Okay.
Like, your opinions and your public political stance breaks your code of ethics, because as part of your code of ethics, you must respect people's identity.
Yeah,
that's in there, and you've publicly said, I don't respect it and I won't uphold it. So you either need to give away your license or come in for re-education. And he's on Rogan being like, basically,
I'm being re-educated.
The communists, and I look at the wording of this, and
they're
trying to re-educate me, and it's like, no, well, you don't meet their code of ethics for that organisation.
By re-education, they mean come in and do like the way you would do like a health and safety course at work. So come in, you know, do this, tick that box, and at least when the next time we get asked a question, we can go, well, he's done his training. You know what I mean?
But like the equivalent of, you know, maybe somebody of colour saying, I'm going to, you know, like the Muhammad Ali type thing. I don't want to be known as Cassius Clay, I want to be known as Muhammad Ali, and you go and see your therapist and they're like, Cassius, and they're like, no, my name's Muhammad, and they're like, no, I'm calling you Cassius because I don't believe. That's the level. That's what we're talking about, and he thinks that he should be able to do that, and the fact that they're taking it off him as some sort of fascism or socialism. You know what I mean? It's like, no, man, like,
because if they're making use of your services in this guise, it is a duty of care that you have, no
100%.
A right to present your own personal opinion.
100%.
You know what I mean?
This is where we get into these, like, so then he's on Rogan. He's literally on the biggest TV show on the planet, and the clip
they're cancelling me. It's on every fucking news website in the world, like, and 10 minutes later.
As Joe does, and you know, as you said, I loved Rogan at one point in time. He's just sitting nodding, and he doesn't really challenge that heavily, you know, because he has his own biases and he has his own opinions, you know what I mean? And it's just this weird, like, we're moving into this real weird, well, we've been moving into it, we've commented on it so many times.
Yep.
We're moving towards like a fucking Handmaid's Tale scenario where these cunts want to go back to like the 50s. It's all this see it on Twitter all the time. How did we end up here? Look what it was like in cunts sharing paintings. And you're like, guy, 1950 didn't look like that. Like, that's a painting of the 1950s.
I mean, even this week, and particularly in America, I know that it's going to be much better here because the same crackpots are diffusing their money and their influence are here in the same senses. But like Florida, like banned books this week in schools.
Oh, really?
Aye, where there's like actual libraries and in school libraries being emptied out or like sealed up because they don't want kids reading stuff. The governor there removed like essentially like Black History studies for like university curriculums and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, so, aye. So in other like fucking, you know, Messiah complex nut jobs like, you know, Tate and Peterson. I think the other one that's been mental since, you know, we last caught up, because I think you touched on it when we were talking about like Marilyn Manson, who has this week settled one of his sexual assault allegations, and which should surprise nobody. You know what I mean? Like, I was some lassie who'd been in Game of Thrones, but his buddy that we were chatting about at the time, Kanye West, man, like that guy. I said to you off mic, like, I don't think I've ever seen anybody like go through like a proper full-on manic episode in public and be like, pure fuck, man, that's what's happening here. I think, you know, it's probably something that happened to like Britney Spears and, you know, a few other celebrities over the years, but again, at the time I wasn't conscious of that, you know, what was going on. Having been there myself, I'm looking at this guy and just being like, man, get some fucking help. Like, how somebody run about him has no just taking him by the scruff of the neck to like, I get him some sort of support or something, man, because he's went off the deep end.
And then some fucking half, mate.
You know what I mean? Like, sitting on bloody
Alex Jones.
Aye, Alex Jones.
If Alex Jones is telling you to calm down, then you're probably in a bad place.
Exactly.
So. The guy's just had how much was his fine for the Sandy?
Well, it was 1.2 billion,
2 billion
for Sandy Hook, and he's trying to claim bankruptcy and bad faith and all sorts of stuff.
Like, how are you going to pay? What's that? You can't even set up a £5 a month.
He makes like £500 million a year, basically, or $500 million a year selling boner pills to people off the back of InfoWars. Like, InfoWars is literally just the facade for like, you know, a supplements organization. So it's like Paul saying, he uses these wedge issues to terrify people into buying his shite, and that's where the money is. So he's actually tried to like, he shares a company with his parents, and he paid a previously uninvoiced bill for $50 million the day before he filed for bankruptcy. So that the parents could basically take $50 million and then he could just basically add to Sandy Hook, fuck the rest of these. But there's all sorts going on with that, but I get what you're saying. I've seen that one where he's sitting there in the balaclava and he's like, so Hitler wasn't all bad? And you're like, dude, fucking hell, man. Like, what?
Like Dave says, see, when Alex Jones is the voice of reason in the room, man, you need to take a look around the room and start thinking about who needs a fucking straitjacket. Like, that's for fucking sure. The Kanye West stuff's really, really interesting because, like you said, there's that similarity between him and Britney Spears as well, right? Because if you look at the treatment that we're now finding out that she got, when she clearly needed help, right? Like when she was driving the car.
Conservatorship was the direct result of all of that. Was that somebody had to step in and go, no, you need somebody to actually look after you. It didn't go well.
Exactly. Like driving a car with her kid on seatbelted, shaving her head, like sort of public outbursts. But see, when it's like the conservatorship that she get put into, by the way, has only ever been used for people that are terminally ill and losing their mind. Like, nobody else has ever had anything like that.
No, I was never in that.
So her dad, there's mad shit coming out, mate. Like the dad, the lawyers, the therapist that's been prescribing all like lithium and like they're all in on it and they've all been extracting money for. I mean, there's something like she's made something crazy since the conservatorship, like a couple of billion, and she's seen none of it.
Right.
She doesn't even get to see. She doesn't get to see her kids. She's not allowed to drink. Like they were forcing her into the studio, forcing her into Vegas thing. She didn't want to do any. It's mental, and it's all about to like unfurl because she got out of her conservatorship, and now she's starting to like the FBI are investigating her dad.
I know the dad was
the doctor and all that sort
in
of stuff.
trouble.
But Kanye West is just getting let to run wild. Now it's a weird thing between a man and a woman. You're like, well, if a woman does it, like they basically like dope them up and make sure they can fucking work because they want the money. That's basically. But with Kanye, they're just like, I don't know, man. It's like a weird.
I mean, they cancelled his fucking current account right now. Obviously, his current account is going to be sitting with way more in it than us. But like, whatever it was, Bank of America or Santander or somebody felt the need to come out and be like, we have cancelled this. This is how bad it's got that we have cancelled this dude's just everyday bank account. Like, we don't want anything to do with him. And you're like, I don't think I've ever seen that, where they're like, this guy is so toxic that we won't even like,
give him a bank account.
we won't even let him buy a fucking carton of milk with one of our kids.
You know what I mean? Andrew Tate's PayPal. Sorry, David, what you got to say there?
I was just
bring that mic in a wee bit closer.
With all that stuff, man. Like, it seemed to be as soon as the anti-Semitism hit out, that's when really, like, he was just completely cancelled.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But yeah, Kanye is in a bit of a breakdown. I was going to say the only difference when you're comparing it to Britney is that she was very much a product from a childish age, so she was always under control, whereas Kanye's much more of a self-made artist. So, like, he doesn't have the same reins and almost the same people around
industrial
him
support system around him.
To take that kind of action.
Agreed. But see, if you look at like TMZ, right? So Britney Spears goes out for dinner like 2 weeks ago, and people are just this day and age, you're just like, what are we doing? Crowds of people just run the table videoing her.
Wow.
And she's already like not well. You can tell she's not well. Right? She's probably got PTSD for this whole fucking thing.
No doubt.
And she's like, please leave me alone. And TMZ are like, manic episode at Hollywood restaurant. And you're like, that isn't a fucking manic episode. But are they touching Kanye? You know what I mean? And it's like, almost like he's outing himself. He's going on fucking podcasts, talking for 2 hours and outing himself. But they're no, the paparazzi, it feels very different. It feels like
even with like the Yeezy stuff, like, I know obviously the anti-Semitism, and rightfully so, has had people like sever their ties with him, but like the Yeezy thing was like in the making already, because like prior to all this kicking off, he was already in dispute with Adidas about the Yeezys, because they were already releasing other shoes and other lines, without the Yeezy branding, that were basically just like carbon copies of what he was selling at like $100 less ago. So like, you know, that one has probably maybe a level of complexity that wasn't just about the anti-Semitism, although that will have been, you know, rightfully the sort of final straw by the sounds of it. But I think all of this kind of stuff has a similar vibe to it, you know what I mean? As I say, the Tates, the Petersons, you know, the influence of somebody like Rogan, the state of guys like Kanye, even though, like, I think the biggest example of it is, like, and we'll maybe like call this episode "He's Not the Messiah, He's a Naughty Boy," because that's where they are. Like Musk, I mean, this guy in the last 6 months is just, I don't know, man. He's lost like $220 billion, which is like the most losses anybody's ever made. Twitter is a fucking bin fire. Like, I can't even stomach it anymore half the time. Like, the For You section is literally like the reverse algorithm, where they've taken everything that you like and just flipped it on its head so that you angrily engage with this content in this platform that is clearly just dying on its arse. You know what I mean? Like, they're all... I think they need to just get together in a room and start like a support group or something. You know what I mean? Like fucking egomaniacs anonymous.
Too much money. People with too much money. And there's like this weird thing that's also like, I mean, this is like the product of fucking just years of like fucking unhinged neoliberal pish, because now it's always comes down to when people are sort of like talking about success. People are just now like, but Elon's rich, and you're like, is that the only fucking measuring stick that we've got for how either good a person or how successful a person is how much fucking money they've made? Like, come on to fuck. Like,
I think he's done quite a lot in recent months to dispel the myth that he's somehow some form of genius.
Like business genius.
Because when he was coming in the chat with, you know, the minions, the underlings, and the people there that, you know, kind of idolise him, was that, everything's going to get streamlined and everything's going to be so much better, and we're going to get these features and this. And what happened was he took a bath, it was linked to his Tesla shares, and then the next thing they were rolling out a paid subscription. You know what I mean? Like, the next thing they're rolling out these For You feeds, and the, you know, stories galore through the back. You know, people being sacked by email at no notice and then asked to come back, and like, you know, getting rid of entire departments and cost-saving measures, and then no realising that that department was like infrastructure critical to actual Twitter even operating and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, sacking people on Christmas Day and all, you know, like, really just, the whole thing seems like it's an absolute shambles.
Feels like Trump. Feels a bit like Trump's fucking America, doesn't it? Like, this pure...
Is there begging Trump to come back? You know what I mean? Like, it knows fine well that Trump's contractually obliged to be on Truth Media. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't even know. Like, I've seen people take screenshots and repost like tweet-like post by Donald Trump, and I'm just sort of like, where is that?
It's just a Twitter clone.
Just like a pure Twitter
It's
clone.
literally just Twitter, except your blue tick's red, and it's somehow even more right wing than Twitter.
So it's the Republican version of Twitter.
Aye, basically, aye.
Right. So it's Twitter. Is this the left when they go, oh, look at the left? Like, what left?
Aye.
You know what I mean? Jesus Christ.
But the whole thing's been a shit show, and I think as well as there's just debacle that Twitter's become, the actual business sense, and making that 44 billion offer, realizing that he was paying significantly over market value, trying to pull out, getting made to look like an absolute dick, being forced to essentially buy it with a gun at his head, and then tanking both Twitter and his Tesla shares in 220 billion. Like, there's also the one, I don't know if you've seen, I was watching a series of videos for a guy that I follow, and he was at some tech convention out in Vegas, and it was all like the fucking, the robot dogs, what are they, the Houston Dynamics and stuff. It was all that type of like, here is some like cutting edge shit, drones and yada yada. And like some of it was quite interesting, some of it was quite cool, some of it was clearly stuff that just, like, I don't really see where the real world application is, but like it was a cool wee video. And it just kept, obviously, Fiji more and more. And it got to one where the guy was like, wait till you see this is the future. And he went to the tunnel. So there's it was getting called like the hyperlink, and also
that's the boring company.
Aye, so
tunnel in Vegas.
Aye, Musk, another one of Musk's things. And it's basically like an underground taxi rank. Like, so it was pitched, when I remember it getting pitched, it was like one of these ultra high speed rail links that flies on fucking magnets and all sorts of stuff. And this guy goes down the escalator, recording his TikTok, and gets to the bottom of the escalator, and it's literally an underground taxi rank full of Ubers. And he gets in it, and it's rideshare, so it's not even, and you get an Uber to yourself. There's 4 seats, 4 of you get in. This tunnel's gone to like 15 minutes away in Vegas somewhere else. And then the guy's in the back filming it and like talking to the driver, and it's funny that he was basically like, so like, how's your day, mate? It was like pure bog standard, like taxi driver chat.
So basically, like, they do know that we've got like underground trains that kind of just do that same thing, where you go under the ground and go into a tunnel on a train, and it gets you in the city quicker.
When the whole hyperlink thing came about, personally, I thought that's genius, because like obviously you need to, like, underground's the place to go if you don't want to build up.
The thing they pitched at that time sounded like it was genius.
It sounded very much like you drive your car into the tunnel.
That was the thing about LA, wasn't it?
You go into multi-layers, and then you go through.
He was wanting to get from the valley to central Los Angeles
in 10 minutes,
rather than
an hour and a half,
and it's
or whatever
that fucking whatever that,
which makes sense.
Freeway
that makes sense.
And LA is a fucking nightmare.
But it's the realized idea that these things come about, and you wonder if it's like he commits to spending however many hundreds of millions doing it, but then he spends however many billion on Twitter and realizes, actually, we can't afford the entrance part bit, right? It's now a taxi rank.
And that's what it was like, a single berth tunnel for just like one car to go through.
What's interesting if it's Ubers is that a lot of Tesla and the Twitter money comes for the Saudi royal families.
Right.
And guess who's the number one investor in Uber? The Saudi royal family. So that's I didn't even
it was some form of ride share. It might not have explicitly been Uber, but it was like Uber. Lyft or whatever. It was just that underground taxi rank, and I was like,
I can put my shell.
What I was like imagining was some sort of like, futuristic, science-driven thing that went like fucking 7 million miles an hour and got you around the planet in like 20 minutes.
It's
and
a bus lane under the ground.
It's like
I thought it was a real. I thought
we doing a taxi being like pure, how's your day, mate?
I thought it was a rail as well, as in like magnets, like a rail.
Like Japan.
I'm pretty sure I didn't imagine that. That's like I'm sure
there
that's
was
how it was
definitely
pitched.
There was definitely like concept designs that were drawn up at the time that were like, this is what it's going to look like, and you thought that would be very cool, that would work, but what he actually presents in the end.
I mean, what?
Yeah.
But he's definitely not a genius anyway.
Elon Musk is like, this whole thing with Twitter's has been the total like antithesis of like this period that we're in.
Oh man.
With these guys with make loads of money, claim to be some form of fucking genius, and then it's like, oh wait,
I think he's bored assuming that it could offer him the same type of influence that like newspapers have offered billionaires in the past. Like, but it needs to like function in a way that people want to engage with, and at the minute it doesn't.
Do you see during the week it owned them? He was out saying like
the fact checks.
He came out saying basically there's this myth about my family owning a mine, like a jewel mine, and it was like in a 2016 interview with such and such, Elon Musk said, you know, my dad had a small stake, and then under that it was like such and such must own 57% of this shit. So it's like your own fucking platform is owning you.
Yep.
Like it's been a disaster, and it's actually been like, before all of this, Twitter was my number one used social media platform, and I barely get near it anymore, man, because see, like you, I go into it and I'm like, all I get is just shit that's just going to piss me off.
Aye, that's exactly it. I mean, I know that you know, that's always had a level of that going on, but then, it's become so prevalent that it's almost unusable. I think if we can get things moving in the direction that we want to move in, I think we get to hopefully to a point where we like set up a Discord or something like that and just take our social interactions just completely off of that and talk to the people that want to talk to us. You know what I mean?
I'll put a link in the comments for your new Truth account.
My new Truth account, thedonald.com.
Before we move into anything else, there was the conspiracy community get pure fucking, it's tailing a twist last week where this guy who was like a truck driver was like, I've been brought by some food company to this like underground tunnel, and like, what's this? And obviously like the conspiracy community were like, this is the network, the tunnel network. And it turns out that it's like an underground cool storage.
You mean like the underground tunnel network in like Us? You know, where it's like underground all throughout America where they're like replacing bodies with doppelgangers and shit?
Well, I think like the conspiracy underground tunnels, well, that's how they traffic the kids. As in these like tunnels under the ground.
That's also in a very recent, very famous movie.
Right. So, but what it turns out to be is that this food company, I can't remember, say it was fucking Kraft. I think it was Kraft actually.
Soylent Green Dot, I think.
They save like 80 million a year by storing this food under the ground because it's cold.
It refrigerates it.
They don't need to pay the electricity.
And
that was it. And this Twitter feed had like all these conspiracy nutters, and then you got about 20 deep, and then there was this guy like, I drive a truck, by the way, I go in there every week. That's like a cool underground facility. Like there's hundreds of them everywhere.
How dare you bring facts to this argument?
I know. So I thought we would just bring in a wee bit of ridiculous fucking conspiracy theory.
But this is the thing that I think the other one this week, you know, and the week in ridiculous conspiracy bullshit. One of the things that, and there has been an obvious and massive sort of political and sort of cultural issue in Scotland in the last couple of weeks, where, you know, the trans stuff and GRR and everything, like, I think we've been our first one back. I just don't want to get into it right now. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to change anybody's opinion on it, and that, so, you know, move on. But in this specific example, one of the things that the Americans were using to wedge this issue, or the Republicans were using to wedge this issue in America, was that kids were starting to identify as house cats, and that they were asking to be allowed to go to the toilet in like kitty litter trays. And this became like an actual legit thing in like American discourse around this issue. It was completely fictitious, completely made up bullshit. A school in Aberdeenshire had to come out and fucking like categorically deny that children in the school were allowed to identify as like cats this week. So the exact same like bullshit lie that has been allowed to just fester and like propagate in America is like literally in our schools now, and you're just like, fuck me, man. Like, we'll obviously have to address some of these at some point, but I just don't know.
All these conspiracies are all repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. It goes from like they're putting stuff in your food as a repeat of they're putting stuff in the water. Like, it's just
putting stuff in your vaccine, putting stuff in your 5G.
It's just paranoia, isn't it? It's just it's mass hysteria.
But I just think the actual like length of distance that this lie has had to travel for, like, you know, some Southern American backwater state that where it came from, and then spread all across, you know, Republican areas in America, to have it to find it in like an Aberdeenshire school, to me is quite baffling.
It's part
you know
of this
what I mean?
mass moral panic that's going on amongst people. Like, we don't know. I don't know, man. I don't think a lot of people have really recovered for the pandemic and what that's really done to people's heads, because I was seeing people like sharing school curricula. I hate that fucking word. Given to like primary 3s and 4s, where they were referring to like penis and vagina. It's like an anatomy chart, and it looked like a sort of like basically like a cartoon, wasn't it, like a photograph, and it was like elbow, head, shoulder, blah blah, and it was like penis, vagina, and people were like, this is sexualizing kids. And you know what I mean? And like, no, that's it. And it's like, I hate to say this, but you're the one that's sexualizing this.
Aye.
Like I was taught like PP and flower. It didn't do me any good. I didn't get any sex education. It didn't do me any fucking good.
No.
I think I would rather that my kids, they're exposed to the reality of the fucking world now.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking to them about having sex at that age. Of course not. That isn't what's happening. They are getting shown an anatomy chart. Now, I was looking at this tweet and this sort of Twitter thread and the sort of argument that was going on in it, and I was like, I can remember being that age, getting a bath with my sister and going, how come she's different? And honestly, I can remember the panic in my mom's face. I like having to explain that to me. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
Now, I think there needs to be a better way than what we've done before.
Oh, aye.
But this is part of this moral panic where we don't know like what way's up, what way's down. You know, like teaching an 8-year-old boy that is called penis is not sexualizing fucking children. No. It's just teaching them the basics of fucking
human biology. You know what I mean? Like,
so weird.
I get you, and I think we kind of like that is the important point you make there is that the people who are in this moral panic about these types of issues want to really like narrow down the parameters of the conversation and make a biological anatomy discussion about sexualization as if we're in showing 4-year-olds how to put condoms on bananas. Like, that's absolutely not what happens. Like, these things are introduced at age appropriate levels throughout their career at school, where they talk to kids about becoming sexually active after puberty. These are all very like deliberately researched and timed conversations. Like, so the notion that educating children on how they can look after themselves in that regard is absolutely ridiculous. As is the whole idea that everybody's just getting like told, as if you're sitting down at primary one and somebody's firing an iPad with Pornhub on it and being like, pure workout for yourself, pal.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
me and Dave
none of that's happening.
It's very much a lose-lose situation for the education system as well, because you're bringing in, every class is when I was a kid it was 30 kids a class. I don't know if it's still the same, but those kids are all from different backgrounds and different levels of means and different parenting styles. So how do you cater to all of that? Because personally, I was actually like, I had a pretty good sex education, but it wasn't from my school. It was more from my mum, like, because she was cool.
I went to a school that was run by nuns, so work that one out for yourself. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well,
the sex education in biology was literally watching an abortion video.
Whoa. That's rough.
Do you remember that in St Andrews? We got shown an abortion video in science in second year.
Aye.
As part of sex education.
I remember getting like that kind of sex ed at high school. Like, we're obviously talking about now like primary school, and I don't think there wasn't that much of like this kind of thing obviously in primary school, but like I don't think that anatomy books would have ever been hidden or discussed in that way. Like, I think it's people just liking to actually take the hump with something, and because it's their kids, they feel like it's their right.
Like the moral panic that we're talking about. Like, we met that guy, we'll no name names. Like, Dave came in, and I was in the sort of middle of a sort of. It wasn't even a debate. I was just saying to the guy, "Listen, mate," because what he was saying was that, they're teaching 7-year-olds how to have anal sex in Scottish schools. And I was like, sorry. You laughed because I just said to him, like, where have you seen that? And he was like, well, I won't name, because it was like somebody that comes into my work told me. And I was just like, right, so you're angry, because the guy was angry. He was like, you're angry about something that, one, I don't think exists. And Dave was like, that doesn't exist, mate.
There's absolutely no way that exists.
And I was like, but two, that somebody has told you that they've seen. And what exactly was it that they seen? Oh, well, I don't know. And it's like, mate, this is where we're at. People are like attaching emotions to like half-truths and bullshit that other people are telling them, like, oh, aye, this is getting out of hand. They're talking about, what they're probably talking about is same-sex couples at that age. They're introducing the idea of homosexuality and lesbianism to kids, because guess what? There's a big 20 to 30% of the boys in that class are gay. Statistically, and somewhere between 15 and 20% of the women, the girls there that are gay. So they're getting introduced to concepts that exist in the real world. Like, you can't shelter kids. Like,
No.
it normalises when I say, like, if you go to primary school and you're in primary 2, and then Tommy in the corner's got 2 dads, well, if they normalise that by introducing it, he won't get bullied. He won't feel like a weirdo. He won't feel like he's different to the rest of them. What's wrong with that? But no, they're getting taught how to have anal sex. Primary school teachers in Scotland are teaching fucking 8-year-olds how.
So
get a grip of yourself.
Start with your finger.
No, come on.
No.
Oh, come on.
But like. Sorry.
But this moral panic needs to stop. Like, because it's getting really fucking fire and brimstone.
It is.
Know what I mean? And
we kind of touched on it in a few other bits and bobs, and I think we're starting to see it really come to a head in Scotland. Like particularly like the trans and sort of gender critical issue. We've seen it used by the right in America. We're seeing it now used by the right in the UK, particularly the UK government, as a wedge. Like, this government is like so desperate. It's on shifting sand. It knows its time's up, and its only hope at the next election is to go further down this culture war rabbit hole that they've been going down for the last sort of 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now the tip of that spear is, the trans and sort of non-binary sort of gender fluid communities, that they can sort of scapegoat here. And in America, we see that tied to abortion rights. We see that tied to, the similar types of, conversations around groomers and the really just horrible stuff that, again, gay people were subjected to, in earlier years. And we're also starting to see that here. We've had conversations about the Back Off campaign. I've seen an article recently, there's campaigning for the buffer zones in the hospitals. I think there's a meeting coming up in the next week or so with Nicola Sturgeon around it. And there's, legislation hopefully on the slate that will provide what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But I seen an article, I can't remember what it was, but I seen an article recently and they were saying that these nutters that are standing outside hospitals and standing outside, sexual health clinics in Glasgow and probably in other cities around the country as well, are actually being funded, at least partially, by American evangelicals. So they're bringing it here in the same way they've brought the trans panic here. And it's because they see that ordinary people don't fully understand this issue. Like the gender recognition certificate, it's literally a bit of paper that says you can get married or die as the person who you believe you are. That's it. That's all that's been discussed over the course of the last 7 years. Multiple governments elected in their manifestos, supermajority in parliament. Like, this was never a controversial issue and it should be a completely settled issue. But we can't get there now because these people like Sunak's government are like, well, here's how we create confusion, here's how we create strife, here's how we create like disharmony, and hopefully, and when the time comes on the election, get enough people to sway our direction on other things. Because if they agree with us on this, what else can we get them to? Can we get them to agree with putting people on planes to Rwanda now that the courts have cleared that? Of course we can, because they already are. You know what I mean? Like, what else can we get them to agree to? So that, they give themselves as much to point to when the next election comes in. But it is clearly just shitty partisan politics, because when Jack and the other one, can't pronounce her name, were asked to come and basically explain to the Scottish government in Parliament why the British government made this decision, they were basically told to fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, it's because there is no actual meaningful. They put the Equality Act at the forefront of it. Like, cool, explain to us how that's the case. No, and you're like, well, so it's bullshit. And I think we're only going to see more and more it, because as we were saying, we're watching something like Twitter where this For You is literally just a feed that is there to antagonise you. Like, even like, TV shows like Nadine Dorris's new TV show, First Guest Boris Johnson. This is, again, everybody everywhere they know is at the, like, to get what I need to needle other people kind of stage. And like, when people get success off the back of that, it's just going to encourage more people to continually do more and more of it.
It's coming full circle with the Andrew Tate stuff, isn't it? It's just pure, like you're saying, using these wedge issues to get yourself in, and then your real fucking agenda will reveal itself.
And this is what's
at the back end.
Why I'm like,
once you go to support,
I found myself frustrated in recent months, like, because I don't know how much oxygen I want to give any of these people. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much time I want to really spend thinking about any of these people. You know what I mean? Like, but we kind of have to. You know what I mean? Like,
There's no two ways about it.
There is no, like, it needs to be called out. We need to be pointing at this shit as much as we possibly can, because it's all been done in quite an insidious way for me. Like I say, it is being cloaked in the language of protecting women's rights. You know, like this thing with the prisoner this week, we're protecting women's... There's 16 people in Scottish prisons that are in some form sort of trans or non-binary. 16 people. Like, where was the concern for these 16 people a week ago? Like, in terms of the wider population, like, again, it's just a very sort of niche, small thing that has been blown out of all proportion by all sides to kind of make their own points without any real meaningful consideration to, like, the reality. Like, seen somebody post and said, going, the amount of people who want to identify as trans in Scottish prisons has doubled in the last couple of years. For two, like I'm saying, you know what I mean? So the rhetoric and all that is deliberately inflammatory, and we're getting it. It's now bleeding into like every aspect of our life.
I don't think. See, as we touch on the culture war, I would say for anybody that's listening, if you want to go and listen to John Ronson's "Where It All Went Wrong" on it's BBC Radio 4, but you get it on Spotify. Go to Spotify. Don't give the BBC your fucking clicks, but and. I don't think there's any ads on there, so they're not getting any ad revenue. But John Ronson's Where It All Went Wrong is really fucking great on this. I don't think that either side is covering themselves in glory on this, because we can't, like you're saying, we are unable to get to any sort of fucking meaningful conversation on any of these issues because of basically this sort of shit slinging that happens in both sides. Because I've got no doubt, like Nicola Sturgeon was saying in the Scottish Parliament, that there are politicians out there, Douglas Ross, you know, let's see where he votes when it comes to the buffer zone, when it comes to actual women's rights, like supporting
or how he voted about rape clauses and all these other things.
Exactly. So this is, it's the exact same way Trump did it, you know, I'm the blue collar billionaire. Like, it's just they're using you to get what they fucking want. But
we need to get more wise to the marketing, because it's fucking with our heads. But
on the flip side, there are a proportion of the anti-trans, or what's been sort of seen as the anti-trans or the TERF community, that probably have legitimate hyper-anxiety about women's rights and where is this leading to and all of that. But see, as long as anybody that pops their head up and going, because some of the stuff I'm like, I'm not even going to pass a comment on this because I've not read into it. But if I was just to read that headline and read that article, I'd be against it. Because it's fucking propaganda when you actually just do a wee bit more digging and go and get a counterpoint. You're like, all right, okay, wait a minute. But anybody that pops their head up and goes, I don't feel comfortable with this, it's like you're a transphobe. And it's like, not all of them are. And I think Nicola Sturgeon did a very, very good job to actually highlight that. Which is like, we get that there are some legitimate concerns on your side.
There was multiple amendments to the bill to try and address those concerns.
But you are siding with people who are veiling homophobia, bigotry and racism under this. They're coming under your fucking flag.
And it's the quote-unquote, it's the gateway drug. Like the transphobia and the misogyny that has been promoted by governments on either side of the Atlantic, it's the equivalent of a gateway drug. They want you to agree with them on this because they know it confuses a lot of people, and that's what they're using to shepherd people in the door to then use them as means to justify other horrible shit.
The mass migration, COVID conspiracy, transphobe crossover is not unnoticeable. It's not unnoticeable.
It's a Venn diagram. It's a perfect circle. You know what I mean?
And these guys will all be in Facebook groups that are getting information, getting popped out for Russia, getting popped out for China, getting popped out for all over the place, just made to confuse the fuck out of you.
Exactly, man.
It's just crazy, man. Like, it's absolutely fucking crazy.
I mean, the one I was flagging up, which was just kind of like the fun thing for me. Obviously, I like my YouTube content, and I like, you know, we've spoke about like Lord of the Rings, a few other bits and bobs that have been fully that get that like culture war reaction. And there was the one in the last week that I wasn't really, I mean, there was all the same actors involved in the same screaming and wailing of teeth, but I don't really, I don't know if any of you seen it, like Velma.
I've not seen Velma, but I have seen a few reactions on it. And it not been taken very well.
Some of the commentary, right? So what's happened? So is this film off of Scooby-Doo?
Have you watched it? Have you watched it?
I've seen bits and pieces of it, and I've watched hours of reviews that literally went like blow by blow. Like, I get in it, same way I get in it with the Halo TV show, and like, so if there's ever any show that like people get like, particularly like grown ass like middle-aged white men like me get like emotionally like upset by, I'm aware of it because it's just my favourite type of content. So it is like, it's hilarious. It pure sustains me, but it's just pure fake pain. And this was another one where I don't know, like, this might be the only TV show in history that has brought like everybody on the face of the planet together in like one agreement on just this one thing, and it's how fucking terribly bad this TV show is. So, it's Velma for Scooby-Doo, but it's Mindy Kaling, the lassie for The Office and the Mindy Project, and you know she's I've seen stuff in her and seen her and stuff, funny. And she was funny. I don't dislike her and like that.
She wrote a lot of the US Office as well.
I remember that. So you know she's got a good career behind her and stuff like that. What she was hoping for here and why nobody at any point went like, what the fuck is this? Like, come on, man. Like, so it's a Scooby-Doo prequel that does not have Scooby-Doo in it for a start. So you know, straight away you're like, why? They've all been race swapped. So Velma is like a South Indian Asian girl like Mindy Kaling, who also plays Velma. Daphne is the Asian hot girl at school, popular girl. Shaggy is gone by his real name, which is Norbert, and he's now black, and he's basically like Velma's like simp. And Freddy is the like airheaded rich white guy who every time like Velma mentions him is like, he's got like a tiny dong. It's like the first episode starts with like, it's almost like an attempt to the like Family Guy style humour, where it's got like cockroaches like shagging and just all sorts of weird like hypersexualized stuff with like essentially what are supposed to be like teenage girls, like shower scenes and
so this isn't for kids.
Daphne's a drug dealer.
So this isn't for kids.
No,
but they've used a kids show.
I don't know what they. I honestly don't know what I don't get what they were aiming for. You know what I mean?
Attempt at like the Scooby-Doo crowd are now adults. Let's make an adult Scooby-Doo show.
I don't know.
But you can already get those kind of videos if you're really
Did the YouTube AI no make those?
They'll probably be better produced as well, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Daphne's mother are two lesbian cops and Daphne's a drug dealer. Freddy's accused and arrested for being a serial killer. There's like people getting dismembered in the school halls, and every kind of like, it's almost like, have you ever seen one of these things where somebody who's a right-wing nut job tries to create something that parodies left-wing comedy? It kind of feels like that, except it's I don't.
It sounds like they've got Kanye West on the writing team.
It's the most erratic, random shit I've ever seen in my life. That it bears absolutely no resemblance to Scooby-Doo. Doesn't parody it? It does all the like Rick and Morty style, like meta, like in jokes and all the rest of it, and like, but it does everything. It's like somebody's taking every like. What's successful sitcoms? What did they do? And they go, well, Friends did this, and they go, right, fire that in the pot.
Right.
And they're like, Cheers did this, and they're like, cool, fire. Rick and Morty did like, gone, The Office, get it, right, start it up, and like just fucking throw it out there and just see what happens. But like, the animation's terrible, the script is terrible, like everything. It's got like a 1.7 on IMDb.
Yeah, I saw it was like really like 13% or something on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, and I was like,
I think it's done at like 6 now. Now there has been like review bombing and stuff like that, obviously, but if you're looking for something that will actually genuinely make you laugh whilst also simultaneously confusing the utter fuck out you, like go and look up like some of the reviews on Velma. I'm not saying watch it because don't watch it. Like and it's weird because all of these guys that I watch for like just their pure over the top reaction to this type of shit, they still watched, so like Resident Evil, the worst show ever, She-Hulk, the worst show ever. They still watched all 8 episodes and reviewed all 8 episodes with the same vitriol that they've had. Like every single review that I watched of Velma watched the first 2, and every single one of them went, do not watch this.
Can't watch it anymore.
I'm not watching any more of this either. You know what I mean? Like, so they all stopped with one. You know what I mean? That's how bad it was. That these guys like, I could get weeks of content out of this.
I'm not doing it.
But I will not do it because it means watching this shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I would definitely say check it out for a laugh.
Sounds good.
Aye, man. Right, well, that was cool, man.
Aye. So let's do the shit that we don't ordinarily do to wind up. If you're still here, like, hit us with a comment, come out and look us up on YouTube. Tell us what you think about fucking Andrew Tate or Peterson, or
Guess what David looks like.
Let's start a campaign to get Dave on cam, or face cam, anything like. Would you want to hear us talk about in the future? Like, kind of, for this point on, it's really going to continue to the extent that you want it to. So, like, get involved.
I made a promise to whom will not to you. So stop the party.